Hi there. Let's create a lead capture design from scratch. Now to do this, we'll click New Design and go into Blank Canvas. And as a side note, you can choose from many of our pre-built templates that already have multiple different form styles and layout configurations and all these things done for you. But the point of this video is to show you what it looks like building from scratch. So we'll start with Blank Canvas. We'll call this Lead Capture. And we'll be taken straight into the Design Studio. And we'll see that we have our Elements panel and Layer Navigator and Frame Navigators, Assets, Fonts and Colors, and then we'll see any critical updates or suggested updates for this design that we're creating. We'll also see that this is the canvas. This is the canvas body, so this is the size that the pop-up will appear on your site. You can change this to a banner if you like, or a flyout, or you can even start with a tab and add a few frames after that so that once this tab's clicked, it opens the pop-up on the center screen. We'll just go straight in using an overlay, and I'll start off by dragging a few elements that I know that I'm going to want, right? I'll have a header text, I'll have a subheader text, and then I will drag in our profile properties for email, and then I'll drag in two buttons, button 1, button 2. Last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a close button, and these will be sort of the basic elements of what we're creating. Now, these all are fixed to the top of the pop-up, so I'm going to change the layout of the canvas to flex. And this will go into Flexbox horizontal alignment by default, meaning that all of these elements are aligned along the x-axis. And I want to change that to vertical. So this layout, I'm applying the layout to the canvas, which means that all of these direct children elements will obey that layout. The only exception to that will be our close button. I want this close button to be fixed up in the upper right corner. So instead of it following the layout of the canvas, we're going to give it absolute positioning. Instead of static, we'll select absolute. It is now outside of the canvas body layout. And then to take that a step further, let's set these to auto, and then I'll set right to 0. So auto for all three of these except for top, set that back to 0. So top and left and bottom are auto, top right 0. That fixes this close button all the way up to the top right. So let's say this one will be welcome, and then sign up below to get an instant 15% off today's order. And I'm not going to go with Arial font. I'm going to apply some typography settings here. So what I'll do is I'll go to our typography settings on the right with this layer selected, and I will use pop-ins. And I will also do the same with this. You can also do this much quicker by adjusting your typography settings in fonts and colors. I have not done that yet, but I'll just do that here with you right now. So we'll set this to like 48 pixels. Set this to 18. 18 is fine for me right now. And next we'll look at our email address property. We'll see that this has an input icon right now. That's great. We'll change our placeholder to your email address, and we'll keep it as required. Now this first button is going to submit the form and link people to our second frame. So let's put submit for now, and I'll go to the settings of the button, and I'm going to assign it a click action. That first click action is going to be submit form with the holding text of submitting. And then I'm going to add a secondary click action, which will link to a frame, but we'll build out the second frame, and then we'll come back and assign this button to link people to that frame. And finally, this last button is going to be our close button that exists sort of at the bottom of the pop-up as sort of a secondary opt-out. And we'll say this is going to close the design. So that's great. We're done with the settings, the functionality of this design, this pop-up design that we're creating. So now it's just styles, right? So I don't want these to extend all the way to the end. So I will apply some padding to my canvas layer. Maybe I'll do 40 from the right and the left, and then we'll do 40 from the top and bottom as well. Now, I'm going to extend, I want these to stay 100% of the width of this until they approach that padding. So these settings right here are fine. I might change the height to 55, for example, for each of these buttons. And then I might want a little bit more space between this text and this email field. And you can do that in a couple of different ways. Let's go back to our flex layout on the canvas. I can actually change the alignment along the cross axis, so how it's appearing along the y-axis. And I can say I want to do space between all of these elements. I can do even spacing. I can align them all to the bottom, to the middle, or the top. And what I'll do is I'll keep it at the middle for this example, and I'll apply some margin to this text layer. And so padding affects spaces inside of the element. So if I applied 10 pixels of spacing at the top, it would put it inside of this element, or margin, which will apply the spacing outside of the element. So I'll apply 20 pixels of margin between this text layer and this email field. And then let's go ahead and do 20 from here too. I'll do between these buttons and the email field, I will set about 10, 10, 10. Okay, and let's say this one is going to say no thanks. Great. I'm also going to change the background of this. I like this sort of very faint color, or this color. So that'll be no. Let's also change these while we're thinking about it. Let's change these over to Poppins. And then we'll give this one also Poppins, but we'll give it a sort of more pronounced, fun, bold. Great, okay. And then let's give this a better color too, that's more prominent as a primary CTA. So then I'll go there, and then I'll change my typography color to white. There. Now you don't want to forget to round your corners, so I'll grab all of these. I'll set my rounded corners to maybe 10. Looks good for now. Did that all at once. And then I'm going to do, what I like to do is I like to remove, or I'll change the stroke of my email field here to that and lighten that up, and then I'll make the background, instead of making it transparent, I will make that just a very, very soft background gray. Cool. So this looks good so far. I like how this is looking. I know that my close button's up here. I know this is assigned to close, and I know that this email address field will be submitted when the user clicks this, and they will be linked to the next frame. The next move is to assure that this design is responsive across all of the different viewports. So now we'll go to our tablet viewport, which is 991 pixels wide and down. That looks good to me for right now. And then we'll go to our mobile landscape, which is 767 pixels and down. And maybe I want to create a little bit more space here. So I'm going to change the width of the canvas to 90%. Okay, so it'll be 90% of the width of that. And so applying this style on the mobile landscape will apply that style here and down. So now I'll see that this is 90% on the mobile portrait view. And when I go scale back up to desktop, it's back to 100%. You could set a maximum width on this. This right now I have set to a maximum width of 700 pixels. So it will stay 100% of the size of the browser window until it reaches 700 pixels. Also, I'm going to change my height. Now that I've added all my elements and styling in here the way that I want, I'm going to change my canvas height to auto. So this will shrink it down so it hits that 40 pixels of padding between these elements, but also it can grow as my device grows and maybe some content needs to stack underneath each other. So that's not the case with this, but if you add more elements to your design, you'll notice that you may need content that was previously horizontally stacked, it'll stack vertically, and in that case you want that height of the pop-up to adjust to those vertically stacking elements. So right now this looks good. Now I feel like my design looks good on all viewports, so I'll go ahead and take this back to desktop, and now I will duplicate this frame. Now that I have all of my settings and styles the way that I want them, I'll duplicate the frame. Let's give this one a name like success frame, because the person successfully entered their email. And then we'll go ahead and rename this one opt-in frame, because that's the main action they're taking on this pop-up. Okay, and now we've named our frames, and now I can go back to my submit button. Remember when we still had to assign a click action to link to the success frame. So we've done that here now, and now we can go to our success frame and we can change this text around. We can say thanks and we'll say click to copy the coupon code below for use at checkout. Great. Okay, so now we've got our text changed, and I can get rid of my email address field. I'll just delete these things out. I'll keep my close button, but I'll say continue shopping. It's more appropriate call to action there. And I will add a discount code layer. So and I'm going to add it right here. I'm going to have to re-add my margin that I had on those other fields. So let's just go ahead and add a 10 pixel margin. Let's give this some style. So we'll change this typography setting to pop-ins. Let's make it bold. And let's invert the colors here. So let's make the typography color white. Let's make our stroke 2, and let's make that dark. And then let's give it a dashed. I'm sorry, no, we're gonna make this white as well. Yeah, and then we'll make our background color dark. So now we have our discount code and we have our continue shopping. And the last step that we'll want to take here is you won't be able to publish your newly created pop-up without populating the discount code. It's Justuno's way of making sure that you don't publish any designs that are incomplete or are not ready for users to receive a discount code. So you'll go into the discount code settings and you'll select one of the discounts that you've made in the commerce section. And if you haven't created any discounts yet, you can create them here or you can sync to a store. I've already created a few, so let's go ahead and use our Hello 10 discount code. And now my design is ready to publish. I can preview it, and now from this point I can go into the workflows and I can add this new design into a workflow which will allow it to be published onto my website. Thanks for watching.